All right, so what do we got here? We got a couple of strings we're going to be testing out. One particular is the Wasabi by Toroline, the Wasabi X to be specific. I got some high hopes, hopefully, for the strings, but we'll see.
Hey, what's up everyone? Jason here from Guts Pose. I wanted to do a quick product review video for you guys. This one's going to be covering a relatively new brand of strings called Toroline. And more specifically for this playtest, it'll be the Wasabi X, the one I'm going to be trying. So I was fortunate enough to get a pack from a friend of mine. So I was really excited and ecstatic to try it after reading some of the reviews and the qualities that it had on their website. And I'll list down some of the qualities for you guys if you haven't read them yet. It's supposed to be a softer polyester strings. So maybe for the arm, it'll be more arm friendly for some people that are suffering from injuries. And B, it has some sort of a special coating over it to help with the snapback of the string quality. Snapback meaning, when we, as tennis players, when we're playing, the strings move around quite a bit sometimes. And with this special coating, it supposedly helps keep the strings in line, so you don't have to fidget and move your strings as much. And B, I believe they said that Wasabi X is a circular round shaped string versus kind of the jagged edge strings that some of these more popular newer strings all tend to have nowadays. So those are the three basic qualities I read about. And besides the Wasabi X, I wanted to kind of reference it and compare it to more of a popular mainstream strings nowadays, which I feel is the Solinco Hyper G. I see bright green in a lot of people's rackets nowadays, so I figure that's probably a popular one. And I just happen to have some for my brother. It's not my go-to strings, but it's definitely what I had available, so I think that would be a great comparison. Some of you guys that have used it in the past or currently use it, maybe that'll be a good reference point for you to understand the comparison as I'm kind of talking about it. I won't go too much into detail for the Hyper G. I will summarize what I feel about it again, but I want to kind of focus more in on the Toroline. So right off the bat, I will talk about the aesthetics quality of it, and then I will get into more of the playtime, characteristics and description of what I feel the strings do. And lastly, I'll leave with a rating of the different strings, so you guys can kind of understand a little bit more in scale what I mean when I'm describing these things. It'll be would be a stiffness rating, so it'll describe some of the stiffness scale, then the power rating scale, and then the overall rating scale. And then to wrap it up, I will summarize and kind of give you a little bit more notes and tidbits on whatever else I felt that was important. Okay, so first of all, the appearance, the aesthetic qualities of it, I think Toroline knocked it out of the park. I haven't really seen anything like it. It stands out so much. It's very vibrant. The package that I received, I was like, oh wow, this thing's really vibrant. It has a lot of colors. It was glossy. It was really sleek. It almost seemed like there was some alien technology inside the bag, right? So I was a little bit more eager to want to open it and to try it out. And upon opening it and feeling the string itself, I definitely felt the slickness of the coating they were talking about. So there was definitely that coating. And while I was stringing my racket, I can see what they're talking about as far as the snapback quality, right? Because when I was weaving in and out of the strings and I pulled the tension, I can kind of see how the string stayed in place more versus kind of just moving all over the place. So I think right off the bat, those two things are accurate. As far as whatever else they might do for the hitting sensation of it, as far as the coating, I'm not sure exactly what else it does though, besides the snapback quality. I don't know. They said it gives a little bit more spin and maybe longevity, but who knows? I'll get into that in the playtest. So that's the first thing I mentioned. I noticed. So the bright, vibrant colors of the bag, the string itself. This one tends to be, I think, closer to the dark neon blue. So it wasn't super flashy like their other line of strings. I think I see their other line of strings are quite bright, which is pretty cool. And this one, they say it's a softer polyester, right? On their website, if I remember correctly, they say it's a softer polyester, and the string shape is round. It's circular in string shape versus kind of like the jaggedy edge that a lot of the newer popular strings have nowadays. So I guess that itself makes it a little bit more predictable in feel. So those three qualities really stand out, I feel. And in my opinion, going into it, I anticipated it to be more of a control-oriented string, right? From the way it sounded. But upon hitting a few balls with it initially, I was like, wow, this thing does feel soft. But it felt like it had more power than than what I was looking for, than what I was expecting. Okay, so upon impact contact with the balls, it definitely felt softer than say the Hyper G, right? But it had a little bit more of a launching feel effect, right? Which is not ideal for me. I don't really like that. So unfortunately, I had to say I didn't quite like that feel. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't launching like 10 feet out or over the fence or anything. So if it happens to some of you guys, it's definitely not the strings, okay? I'm just saying. But it did have a little bit more power than the Hyper G, right? So I will get into this power scale and stiffness scale shortly. But those are the two things that I felt immediately, right? Ooh, this feels quite soft. But it didn't have the ball pocketing feel that I was hoping it would have. Ball pocketing feel meaning, I mean by this, the dwell time of how when you make impact with the racket and the ball, how it feels like it'll stay on your string for just a little bit longer versus just kind of just launching right off the string bed. And that's a sensation that I really appreciate and like, which I feel the Toroline was lacking, right? It didn't quite have that. I don't know, maybe it's due to the coating. Who knows? But that's what I felt about the string in comparison to the Hyper G, right? Hyper G I feel is more of a middle of the road type string, so it's not too stiff, but it's not really soft, and it definitely doesn't launch it as much. I feel it's pretty stable, right, and predictable. So you have to apply a little bit more power into it, which is fine. But what it has, I feel, is the string longevity of it and the string tension maintenance of it, I think is quite good on the Hyper G. So those of you that don't break strings too often or don't string your own rackets, I would say, it's kind of beneficial because it doesn't lose a whole ton of sensation and tension as other polyester strings. Now I'll get into the scale of things so you can kind of reference in numbers and have an idea what I'm talking about. For the stiffness scale for Toroline Wasabi X, I would rate it about a 3 or 3.5 out of 10. So 0 being softest, 10 being stiffest. So I would say about a 3.5. The Hyper G Solinco, this is not the soft version, this is the regular version, I would say it's about a 5.5, right? I mean, it's definitely stiffer in feel, but it wasn't like arm jarring, like shattering feel. And it definitely hasn't hurt my arm in all the times I've used it. So that's an important note to point out. As far as the power scale, right, I would rate this Wasabi X about a 7. So definitely more powerful than the Hyper G, which I will rate a 5.5. So that's why I say the Hyper G is kind of like a middle of the road type string for me. It's right like around 5.5, both stiffness and power. Whereas the Toroline Wasabi X, it's definitely softer in sensation, but it definitely had more of a power feel and almost like a little bit launching feel. So it wasn't the best feeling strings. So the overall rating for both strings, I would give the Wasabi X a 6 out of 10. And the Solinco Hyper G a 7 out of 10. So if I had to pick between one or the other, the winner of this review will go to the Solinco Hyper G. But I will say this, I will recommend you guys to try both strings. Even though, I'm not really talking bad about the Wasabi X, I was a little bit disappointed because I was kind of expecting more of the pocketing feel, more control, because I personally value those things more, right, than say power. I would gladly sacrifice power to gain more control and accuracy. But the qualities which stand out and which makes it worthwhile trying is the pricing point. The pricing point, I think it's great. It's like $11-12 each, which is very reasonable. And B, the soft sensation. I mean, I don't think I've really tried anything that felt quite as soft. So I think that's great, especially for maybe people that are suffering from arm issues or any injuries. It might be worth looking into. I don't know the longevity of how it plays out on our body because I've only used it for 2 days, and I want to use it for more than 1 day and more than 10 minutes. Okay, so I can kind of give a proper assessment of the product. Both days, yep, it felt accurate and felt like similar. And the Hyper G, I think it's worthwhile trying too if you haven't tried it. Also because the pricing point's quite reasonable. It's probably the same, like $11-12 each. And it's nothing really stands out as far as the Hyper G, but it's definitely more stable. I like that stability aspect of it. So it's not launching as much, and it has good string maintenance, longevity, right? So it's not dropping tension like crazy, like most strings do that. and it really has that spin potential a little bit because it's got the jagged edge. Again, it's not going to magically give you like super duper spin, right? So don't get me wrong, but it has a little bit of that feel to it. So those are some of the good takeaways that make it worthwhile to try these two strings. And again, I would love to try out different Toroline strings because they sound and they look really cool. So in the future videos, I'm looking forward to trying a few different makes and models. Now let me talk to you about the go-to strings I have for myself right now. Currently it's the Solinco Confidential. So the way I kind of came into conclusion about picking my go-to string is this. I had a wrist injury, like pretty bad one, like quite some time back, and I believe it was due to, I hate to say it, but the Luxilon 4G strings I was using. I really enjoy that strings. It's probably still my favorite string because it has this ball pocketing feel and this touch feel and just accurate control feel. I mean, it just feels amazing, right? And it really doesn't feel stiff. It feels rather soft too. But for some reason, I was developing really bad wrist pains to the point where I couldn't really hit, through the ball so much. So anyway, long and short is I changed strings, and upon changing strings, after a few weeks, the pain went away. And I was like, it's got to be kind of coincidental. But then I switched back. I kind of just, made sure I tried the 4G again, and yep, sure enough, after a few weeks, the pain came back. And then I switched back again to the Confidential, and I was like, wow, kind of went away. So it's just, I don't know if it's coincidental. I'm definitely going to have to revisit that because I think that's an important aspect of our game, right? Just pain and injuries and stuff. So I wanted to really pinpoint and make sure I'm doing an honest and accurate assessment of it. But yeah, that's why I like the Confidential a lot. It's got more of a ball pocketing feel than the Hyper G, I feel, but it has a little bit more power, but controlled power. Okay, it doesn't feel like it's launching off my string as much as the Toroline Wasabi X. Again, if you guys have tried any of these strings, please leave some feedbacks. I would love to hear from you what your experiences are, and share with us, your take on it too. We would greatly appreciate it. And anyway, until the next one, practice, play, and live with passion. Take care, guys. Hope you're doing well. See you on the next one.